In the heart of a sprawling American landscape where modern urbanity met wild, untamed nature, the air carried whispers of ancient pacts and secrets, older than time itself. The city's neon glowed softly against the night sky, a constant reminder of a world progressing at breakneck speed, while the distant wilderness cradled legends passed down through generations. It was in this collision of eras and energies that Lunara, a fiercely independent woman with an untamed spirit, found herself inexplicably drawn to the mysteries that lurked beyond the veneer of everyday life. Lunara's life in the city had always been a delicate balancing act. By day, she navigated boardrooms and bustling streets with a poised determination, and by night, she sought solace in the quiet corners of sprawling parks and hidden urban ruins. Her soul was restless, yearning for something that transcended the mundane. It was during one of her nocturnal wanderings that she first encountered Kyle, a man whose presence seemed to command the shadows, stirring a deep resonance within her. Kyle was not like the others. With chiseled features softened by the melancholy of old scars and eyes that shimmered with the weight of untold stories, he exuded a quiet power that was impossible to ignore. Rumors swirled around him, whispered among those who dared speak. His name, tales of a lineage that was both revered and feared, of a curse and a destiny intertwined with the supernatural. His reputation as an alpha with an ancestral duty was both a burden and a beacon, drawing those who sought meaning in their own existence. On that fateful night, as the silver luminescence of the moon draped the city in an ethereal glow, Lunara found herself standing at the edge of an ancient stone bridge. The structure, long forgotten by many, was said to be a relic of a time when the world was ruled by forces far greater than any mortal could fathom. The wind whispered through the arches, carrying with it echoes of vows made and broken, a sound that stirred something deep within her. "Who are you?" came a deep, resonant voice from the darkness. Startled, Lunara spun around to see a tall, imposing figure emerging from the shadows. His eyes, glowing faintly in the moonlight, held an intensity that made her pulse quicken. "I could ask you the same," she replied, her voice steady despite the tremor of adrenaline coursing through her veins. Kale's gaze bore into hers, as if weighing the truth behind every word. "I am Kale," he said simply, the name itself resonating like a whispered promise of destiny. "And you, Lunara, are bound by forces you cannot yet comprehend." His declaration was both an invitation and a challenge. For Lunara, it was as if the cosmos had conspired to thrust her into a narrative far greater than any she had ever imagined. Even as she struggled to reconcile the rationality of her modern life with the primal allure of the unknown, a spark of curiosity ignited within her. Over the ensuing weeks, the enigmatic bond between them began to unfold in unexpected ways. Their meetings, clandestine and fraught with a mixture of danger and allure, took them to forgotten corners of the urban labyrinth. A derelict warehouse reclaimed by nature, an abandoned subway station echoing with the ghosts of the past, and even secluded groves on the outskirts of the city, where ancient trees bore silent witness to rituals long lost. In these secret havens, beneath the watchful eyes of the stars, Lunara and Kale discovered not just a mutual attraction, but a shared history steeped in pain, sacrifice, and a promise that transcended mortal understanding. One cool autumn evening, as the city around them slumbered beneath a blanket of fog, Lunara and Kale found refuge in a derelict chapel, its crumbling stone walls a testament to a time when faith and fate intermingled. Within those hallowed ruins, the air was thick with incense, and the ghosts of prayers long since faded into myth. It was here that Kale revealed fragments of a secret that had haunted his bloodline for generations, a secret that, if unveiled, could shatter the tenuous peace of his clan. "My family has been bound to an ancient vow," Kale confessed, his voice heavy with regret. "A promise made in blood and sealed with a curse. For centuries, my ancestors have protected a sacred relic, a token of power that, if misused, could bring about our downfall. I have lived my life under the shadow of that promise, knowing that every choice, every sacrifice, echoes the sins of the past." Lunara's eyes widened with both empathy and a dawning realization. "And you believe our meeting is part of that destiny?" she asked softly, her words trembling between hope and trepidation. Kale's gaze softened as he stepped closer, the distance between them charged with the promise of both passion and peril. "I do," he admitted. "Our connection was not forged by chance but by a pact as old as the very winds that caress these lands. In you, I see a chance for redemption, a possibility to break free from the chains of fate and rewrite the story that has bound us for centuries." As the night deepened, so did the layers of their intertwined destinies. Their conversations flowed with the cadence of old souls reconnecting after lifetimes apart. Each word spoken was laden with the weight of centuries, and every touch carried the spark of something primordial, a force that defied logic and embraced the wild, unyielding power of the unknown. Yet, beneath the burgeoning intimacy, lay an undercurrent of tension, a sense that not all secrets were ready to be unearthed. Unbeknownst to Lunara, a rival faction within Kale's clan had grown resentful of his attempts to forge a new path, one that threatened to disrupt the delicate balance of power. Whispers of betrayal and dissent were gathering strength, and the fragile unity of the pack was on the verge of rupture. In a tense, hushed moment amid the crumbling pews of the chapel, an elder from the pack, his eyes clouded with sorrow and anger, confronted Kyle. "You dare toy with fate, Kale," the elder growled, his voice echoing off the stone walls. "Our ancestors' sacrifices demand respect, not reckless rebellion. If you defy the ancient vow, you risk damning us all." Kale's jaw tightened, and for a moment, the air seemed to thicken with the weight of impending conflict. "I only seek to free us from a cycle of pain and betrayal," he replied, his voice resolute, yet laced with vulnerability. "Redemption is not found in blind adherence to old wounds, but in the courage to forge a new destiny." The confrontation left the chapel steeped in a somber silence, the weight of the elder's words hanging in the air like a curse. Lunara watched the exchange with growing concern, the lines between loyalty and love blurring in her mind. Could the promise of their bond truly be the key to mending ancient scars, or was it merely a spark that would ignite the flames of a devastating war? Outside, the city's restless heartbeat continued unabated, oblivious to the supernatural currents swirling beneath its surface. Neon lights flickered and danced as if echoing the turmoil within Kale's eyes, while distant sirens hinted at a modern world too preoccupied with its own battles to notice the ancient war brewing in its midst. Later that night, as the wind carried murmurs of betrayal and longing, Lunara sat on a secluded rooftop overlooking the cityscape. The urban sprawl glistened like a tapestry of dreams and disappointments, a stark reminder of the duality of her existence. With a diary clutched to her chest, she began to document the events unfolding around her, each word a step deeper into a labyrinth of love, loyalty, and loss. "I have always felt as if I were walking a tightrope between worlds," she whispered, into the night, her voice barely audible over the hum of distant traffic. "In you, Kale, I see both the promise of salvation and the threat of damnation. How can a single bond hold the power to change the course of destiny?" Kale's response came not in words, but in a tender embrace that spoke of shared pain and unspoken understanding. In that fleeting moment, the chasm between their two worlds seemed to narrow, offering a glimpse of a future where hope and despair coexisted in fragile harmony. Yet, even as their hearts aligned in silent accord, the seeds of discord were being sown, seeds that would soon sprout into conflicts too immense to contain. As the first hints of dawn began to color the horizon with shades of amber and rose, Lunara realized that the journey ahead was fraught with peril and sacrifice. The ancient vow that had bound her to Kale was both a promise of eternal love and a harbinger of inevitable strife. With the rising sun casting long shadows over the city, the echoes of the past merged with the pulse of the present, setting the stage for a battle between destiny and free will that would determine the fate of their intertwined souls. In the quiet prelude to a storm, every heartbeat resonated with both hope and trepidation. Questions hung in the air like fragile whispers, waiting to be heard. Could love defy the constraints of ancient curses? Would the revelation of long-buried family secrets tear their worlds apart? Or could it pave the way for a new era of redemption? And above all, was the price of defiance one they were willing to pay for a chance at true liberation? In that, Suspended moment of fragile calm, as the city awoke to another day, and nature prepared to reclaim the night, Lunara and Kale stood at the precipice of a destiny that promised both wonder and woe. The ancient winds, carrying the murmurs of long-forgotten vows, swirled around them, a reminder that every beginning was inextricably linked to an ending, and that even the purest bonds could be tested by the relentless tides of fate. The night yielded to the inevitable glow of morning, leaving behind a trail of questions that beckoned them forward into a future where the clash of ancient legacies and modern dreams would forge a path paved with both love and loss. With every step they took toward the unknown, the promise of redemption shimmered in the distance, a beacon of hope that might just illuminate the darkness surrounding them. In the wake of that fateful night, the city found itself cloaked in a shroud of uneasy anticipation. The once familiar urban landscape now teemed with hidden undercurrents of power and destiny, its streets and alleys whispering secrets to those who dared listen. As the sun set over the skyline, Lunara and Kale's bond began to deepen, their clandestine encounters transforming into an intricate dance of passion, purpose, and peril. During a brisk evening walk through a long-forgotten botanical garden, tucked behind crumbling brick buildings, Lunara's thoughts swirled with the revelations of the past days. The garden, once a thriving sanctuary of nature amidst concrete, now served as a living relic, a silent testament to both beauty and decay. Its overgrown paths and tangled foliage mirrored the complexity of her inner world, where hope and trepidation coexisted. In the dappled light of twilight, every rustle of leaves carried echoes of promises made under the watchful eyes of the ancestors. I still can't fathom how fate would intertwine our lives so seamlessly, Lunara confided, her voice soft but resolute as she glanced at Kale. The setting sun cast a golden glow upon his chiseled features, softening the rugged intensity that had long defined him. His eyes, usually so guarded, shimmered with an unspoken vulnerability that stirred something deep within her. Kale's reply was measured, reflective of the burdens he bore. Our souls have always been bound by threads we can scarcely comprehend. My lineage carries scars from a time when honor and destiny dictated our every move. With each step I take, I feel the weight of those lost promises pressing upon me. His tone was laden with sorrow and resolve, a blend that only deepened Lunara's understanding of the inner turmoil that drove him. Their conversation, held in hushed tones amidst the overgrown beauty of nature, reclaiming man's forgotten spaces, began to peel back layers of secrets. Kyle recounted the tales passed down through generations, a legacy of betrayal and sacrifice that had marked his family. His voice wavered as he spoke of a long-lost love and a promise broken, of dark deeds committed in the name of survival. I was once forced to choose between duty and the love I cherished, he admitted, his gaze drifting towards the heavens, as if seeking forgiveness among the stars. And in doing so, I sealed a fate that still haunts me. Lunara's heart ached with the weight of his confession. But you have the power to change that, she urged, her words both a plea and a declaration of unwavering belief. The future is not written in stone, it is forged by the choices we make. Let this love be the catalyst for healing, not a reminder of our failures. In her eyes, Kale found a glimmer of redemption, a chance to rise above the legacy of despair that had long defined his existence. That night, beneath a vault of endless stars, they ventured to an abandoned observatory perched on a hill overlooking the city. The structure, though weathered by time, exuded an air of mystery and forgotten grandeur. Its vast dome, now partially collapsed, revealed a cosmic panorama that evoked both wonder and a sense of profound insignificance. Here, away from the prying eyes of the modern world, Kale unveiled more of his troubled past. I was once promised a destiny of leadership and honor, Kale began, his voice echoing softly in the hollow chamber. But the choices made in the name of duty came with unbearable sacrifices. The relic our clan has guarded is not merely an artifact, it is the embodiment of our ancestral pride and the price of our salvation. I have witnessed friends fall, families shattered, and trust erode beneath the burden of that legacy. His confession was raw and unguarded, exposing a man tormented by memories of lost battles and broken bonds. As the cool night air mingled with their shared confessions, the observatory seemed to hold its breath, preserving the intimate space where past and present collided. Lunara felt a profound connection with the cosmos itself, a reminder that every star, every distant light had a story of its own, a tale of struggle and survival. "We are but fragments of a much larger tapestry," she whispered, tracing a finger along the ancient inscriptions carved into the observatory's worn stone walls. "Our pain, our love, they are all interwoven into the fabric of existence." Yet, even as they sought solace in their shared vulnerability, the present threatened to intrude with relentless urgency. The whispers of dissent among Kale's pack had grown louder, reverberating through the hidden corridors of power. Within the very heart of their clan, a faction had arisen, one that viewed Kale's efforts to embrace change as a betrayal of everything their forebears had sacrificed. This faction, led by a fierce and uncompromising elder named Rowan, was determined to restore the old order by any means necessary. During a clandestine gathering deep within a secluded forest clearing, Kale found himself confronting the bitter realities of his lineage. The moon hung low in the sky, its pale light casting eerie shadows on the faces of those assembled. Rowan's presence was both commanding and chilling, his eyes gleaming with an almost feral intensity as he addressed the assembly. "We have long upheld traditions that have served us well," Rowan declared, his voice rising above the murmurs of discontent. "Yet now Kale's dalliance with forbidden ties threatens to unravel the very fabric of our legacy. His vision of redemption is nothing but a mirage, a distraction from the sacred duty that binds us." Kale, though outwardly calm, could feel the tremors of conflict roiling beneath the surface. "Redemption does not come from clinging to the past," he countered, his voice resonating with both passion and pain. "It is born from the courage to challenge what has always been and to dare to build something new, a future where our traditions do not shackle us, but rather guide us with wisdom and compassion." His words, though heartfelt, were met with a heavy silence, as if the very trees bore witness to a growing schism within their ancestral home. Back in the city, Lunara's inner conflict mirrored the chaos unfolding in Kale's world. Each secret uncovered brought with it the duality of hope and despair. Late one rainy evening, while sheltering in a dimly lit diner, she met with an old friend who had insights into the ancient lore that haunted Kale's bloodline. Over steaming cups of coffee, and amidst the clatter of cutlery, the conversation took a somber turn. "Lunara, you must understand that what you're getting involved in is not just a love story," her friend cautioned. "It is a legacy of pain and sacrifice, a burden that has consumed generations. The relic you heard about, the sacred artifact, is said to possess a power that can either redeem or damn its bearer." The friend's eyes, filled with a mixture of empathy and forewarning, searched Lunara's face. "Are you ready to face the darkness that comes with such a legacy?" Her heart pounding with both fear and determination, Lunara replied, "I've never been one to shy away from the unknown. If Kale's path leads to redemption, then I will walk it with him, no matter how treacherous it becomes." It was a promise that resonated with the resolve of someone who had seen too much of life's cruelties to be deterred by them. In the days that followed, the rift within Kale's pack widened into an abyss of mistrust and simmering hostility. The faction led by Rowan began orchestrating covert maneuvers, aiming to wrest control away from Kale and reinstate the rigid hierarchies of old. Rumors of dark rituals and secret pacts began to circulate, a reminder that beneath the veneer of modern society, ancient forces were still very much at play. Kale, torn between the loyalty to his clan and his burgeoning love for Lunara, found himself at a crossroads. His inner turmoil reached a crescendo during a stormy night when lightning split the sky and rain pounded relentlessly against the ancient stones of the observatory. Alone in the solitude of that sacred space, Kale confronted the ghosts of his past, the echoes of every choice that had led him to this perilous juncture. "Am I doomed to repeat the mistakes of my ancestors?" he wondered aloud, his voice barely audible over the howling wind. In that moment of raw introspection, he realized that the only way to break free from the cycle was to embrace the unknown, to forge a destiny unbound by the chains of legacy. Determined to bridge the widening chasm between his duty and his heart, Kale sought out Lunara, He arrived at her modest apartment in the heart of the city, drenched from the storm, his eyes blazing with a mixture of desperation and hope. "Lunara, I need you to trust me," he implored, as she opened the door, her eyes wide with concern. "I've seen the darkness that looms over us, a darkness that threatens to devour everything we hold dear. Together, we can unravel the curse that binds us and chart a course toward redemption." Their conversation spilled into the early hours of dawn, punctuated by moments of silence heavy with unspoken fears and aspirations. Lunara listened intently as Cale recounted his encounters with Rowan and the growing dissent within the pack. "I fear that the very essence of who we are is at stake," he confessed, his voice trembling with the weight of his revelations. "Every secret, every lie, has led us to this point where the past collides with the present in a way that could shatter us all." As the first light of morning crept through the curtains, painting the room with hues of soft gold and rose, Lunara resolved to stand by Cale no matter the cost. "Our love is not just a fleeting spark, it is a beacon in the darkness," she whispered, her words a vow etched into the fabric of their shared destiny. "We must confront these demons, not as isolated souls, but as partners bound by a force greater than ourselves." In the days that followed, the stakes grew ever higher. Cale and Lunara began to gather allies, those within the pack who still believed in the possibility of change, and even some from outside who had felt the pull of the supernatural current stirring beneath the surface of everyday life. Together, they embarked on a perilous quest to unearth the true nature of the relic that had haunted Cale's lineage for so long. Their journey took them deep into the heart of ancient libraries hidden within modern institutions, to cryptic archives guarded by time and tradition, and even to secret ceremonies held in abandoned warehouses where the lines between myth and reality blurred. One fateful night, amid a torrential downpour and the incessant hum of a restless city, the duo discovered a manuscript that revealed startling truths about the relic. The ancient text, written in a cryptic blend of archaic script and modern annotations, spoke of a pact made between celestial beings and mortal heirs, a pact that promised both salvation and ruin. "The relic is a mirror," Cale deciphered aloud, his fingers tracing the faded ink on brittle parchment, "one that reflects not only the glory of our past but also the darkness that lurks within. Only by facing this duality can we hope to mend the fractures of our souls." Lunara felt a shiver run down her spine as she absorbed the gravity of the manuscript's message. "Then our journey is more than just a quest for redemption. It is a pilgrimage into the heart of our own darkness," she murmured, her eyes reflecting the burden of the truth. In that moment, the revelation forged an unbreakable bond between them, a shared understanding that the path to healing was as treacherous as it was transformative. As they delved deeper into the manuscript's mysteries, the outside world seemed to recede into insignificance. The city, with its bustling streets and neon dreams, became a distant murmur compared to the profound silence of the ancient wisdom they unearthed. Their nights were spent in fevered discussions, each revelation peeling away layers of deceit and unveiling a history that was as painful as it was mesmerizing. Yet, even as hope began to glimmer in the darkness, danger lurked, ever closer. Rowan's faction, sensing the shift in power, ramped up their machinations. Rumors of covert attacks and betrayals rippled through the pack, and a palpable tension descended upon every meeting and ritual. The clash between tradition and transformation was imminent, a battle that would test the limits of loyalty, love, and the human spirit. In one particularly charged confrontation within the sacred halls of an abandoned chapel, Cale found himself locked in a battle of wills with Rowan. "You cling to the past as if it were your savior," Rowan hissed, his eyes burning with fanatic zeal. "But our ancestors' wisdom cannot be discarded on a whim. The relic is our heritage. It is the legacy that has defined us, and you, Cale, are betraying that sacred trust." The tension in the room was palpable, each word a spark that threatened to ignite a conflagration of long-suppressed emotions and ancient grudges. Cale's response was both a plea and a challenge. "Tradition must evolve, Rowan. Holding on to relics of a bygone era only breeds stagnation. Our true legacy is not in the artifacts of the past, but in our ability to change, to forgive, and to forge a future that honors our pain and our triumphs alike." His words, echoing off the stone walls, were met with a mix of anger and reluctant acknowledgement from those who had gathered to witness the unfolding drama. The confrontation left Cale with the unmistakable sense that every decision he made now was a step toward an uncertain future, one that might ultimately lead to the redemption of not just himself but of an entire lineage battered by the weight of ancient vows. With Lunara by his side, however, he found the strength to embrace that uncertainty, to challenge the deterministic chains that had bound him for so long. That very night, as thunder rumbled in the distance and the rain hammered against the cold, unyielding stones of the city's forgotten corners, Lunara and Cale made a vow to pursue the truth of the relic at all costs. Their journey would lead them into the heart of darkness, and if fortune favored them, toward the light of a new dawn where every wound could heal, and every betrayal could be forgiven. In the quiet moments before sleep claimed them, as the city's noise dwindled into a lullaby of distant traffic and murmuring winds, Lunara penned a final entry in her diary, a promise to honor the love that had blossomed amidst chaos, and a commitment to face the future with unwavering courage. "We are the architects of our destiny," she wrote, her handwriting bold against the page. "No relic, no curse, can bind us forever. Our love is the catalyst that will mend what was broken and ignite the flame of renewal." As the first hints of morning light began to infiltrate the darkness, the battle lines, drawn between those who revered the past and those who dared to envision a different future, seemed to blur into a single, collective struggle. In that fragile moment of dawn, every heartbeat, every whispered promise carried the weight of redemption, the sting of betrayal, and the glimmer of hope that only true transformation can yield. Stepping out into the cool embrace of the early day, Cale and Lunara knew that their journey was only just beginning. The relic's secrets beckoned from the shadows, and with every step they took, the world around them shifted. Each heartbeat, a defiant drum against the forces of destiny. The path ahead was fraught with danger and despair, yet illuminated by the potential of a love so profound it could alter the very course of history. In the wake of the revelations from the previous nights, the fabric of fate began to unravel in unpredictable ways. The quest for the relic's true purpose led Lunara and Cale deeper into a realm where every step threatened to tip the scales between salvation and damnation. Their journey took them away from the familiarity of urban landscapes into the wilderness, a vast enigmatic expanse of ancient forests, rugged canyons, and abandoned sanctuaries where time itself appeared to have paused. Early one mist-shrouded morning, the couple set out on a pilgrimage into the heart of an old national park, rumored to house ruins of a long-forgotten civilization. The park, with its towering redwoods and echoing canyons, was steeped in myth. Local legends whispered of a secret sanctuary built by ancestors who had once communed with celestial forces. The air was heavy with an almost tangible expectancy, as if every rustle in the undergrowth carried the murmurs of an ancient truth, waiting to be discovered. Walking side by side along a narrow, winding path, Lunara's eyes sparkled with a mix of determination and wonder. "Every step we take feels like a step back in time," she mused, her voice barely louder than the sound of the wind weaving through the trees. Kyle, his gaze fixed ahead but his mind racing with the weight of his own memories, replied quietly, "And with every step, I feel the chains of our past loosening, yet I also fear what might fill that void." The silence between them was soon broken by the sudden appearance of a mysterious guide. A weathered figure emerged from behind a copse of ancient pines, his eyes reflecting both kindness and a lifetime of secrets. "I have been expecting you," he intoned, his voice carrying the cadence of long-lost lore. "My name is Elias, and I am a keeper of old truths. I have watched the signs, and I believe the answers you seek lie beyond the threshold of these woods." With measured caution, yet driven by a hunger for understanding, Lunara and Kyle followed Elias deeper into the wilderness. The guide led them along hidden trails that twisted through groves dense with ferns and moss, where shafts of sunlight danced upon the forest floor like ephemeral specters. As they walked, Elias recounted the ancient history of the land, a time when mortals and the supernatural existed in a delicate equilibrium, bound together by mutual respect and shared destinies. "Long ago," Elias began, This land was a crossroads of energies. The relic you seek was not merely an object of power, it was the symbol of a covenant between the celestial and the earthly. Its purpose was to guide the bearers of its light toward a destiny of balance. But as time passed, the wisdom of the ancients was forgotten, and with it, the promise of unity was shattered. His words resonated deeply with Cale, stirring memories of a heritage steeped in both glory and regret. The trio reached an ancient stone archway hidden beneath thick vines, a portal that seemed to beckon them into a forgotten world. Beyond the arch, the landscape transformed into a series of interconnected ruins, where moss-covered statues and crumbling pillars whispered stories of a bygone era. The remnants of this lost sanctuary exuded an aura of reverence and sorrow, as if mourning the loss of an age when magic and mortality had walked hand in hand. Within the ruins, the air vibrated with an unspoken energy. Cale felt the pull of ancestral voices urging him forward, while Lunara sensed that the relic's secret was within reach. They entered a vast chamber where a mosaic floor depicted celestial beings entwined with mortals in a dance of unity and discord. The artistry was breathtaking, each tile a piece of a larger cosmic narrative. As they studied the intricate design, Elias's voice softened with reverence. This mosaic is a map, a symbolic representation of the journey you must undertake. The relic is hidden in the heart of the sanctuary, guarded by trials that test not only your strength but your very soul. Only by confronting the shadows within you can you hope to awaken its true power. The gravity of his words settled over them like a shroud. In that silent moment, the significance of their mission crystallized. Kyle's inner turmoil found an echo in the faded lines of the mosaic, each figure a representation of the sacrifices made by those who dared to challenge destiny. Lunara, ever the brave spirit, felt a surge of determination. Every revelation, every hardship, was forging her into someone capable of transcending the boundaries of fate. Their exploration of the ruins was abruptly interrupted by an echoing sound, a rhythmic beating that seemed to emanate from deep within the chamber. The pulse of the sound reverberated through the ancient stones, merging with the steady cadence of their own hearts. "That's the relic," Cale murmured, a mixture of awe and apprehension tinting his tone. "It calls to us." Compelled by the mysterious beat, they followed its resonance through narrow passageways carved into the earth. The deeper they ventured, the more palpable the presence of something otherworldly became. Shadows shifted with a life of their own, and the walls pulsed with a rhythm that mirrored their growing anticipation. The sound led them to a secluded cavern, its ceiling high and adorned with natural formations that glimmered with mineral luster. At the center of the cavern, nestled upon an altar of weathered stone, lay the relic, a crystalline orb emitting a soft, ethereal glow. The orb pulsed like a living heart, its light dancing across the cavern in a mesmerizing display. For a moment, time seemed to stand still as Lunara and Cale approached the enigmatic object, each step laden with the weight of destiny and the promise of transformation. Elias's voice, filled with both caution and hope, broke the reverent silence. "Be warned, the relic is not merely a token of power. It is a mirror that reveals the deepest truths of the soul. To claim it, you must confront the legacy of your past and the shadows that lurk within your hearts." In that charged atmosphere, Kyle stepped forward, his eyes locked on the pulsating orb. "I must face what I have long tried to escape," he declared, his voice echoing in the cavern's vast emptiness. His admission was both a confession and an act of defiance against the chains of his lineage. Lunara, standing close by, felt the intensity of his resolve reverberate through her, intertwining with her own determination to break free of the shadows that had haunted her life. Summoning every ounce of courage, Cale reached out and touched the orb. The moment his fingers brushed against its cool, crystalline surface, the cavern was bathed in a blinding light that sent shockwaves through the ancient stones. Visions flooded his mind, memories of past lives, fragments of forgotten battles, and echoes of promises made under blood-soaked moons. Amid the overwhelming torrent of images, he saw the faces of those he had loved and lost, and the spectral forms of ancestors who had borne the burden of their eternal vows. Lunara's voice, filled with both fear and fervor, pierced the luminous haze. "Kale, hold on to who you are. Remember that you are more than the sum of your past regrets." Her plea resonated with a raw power that seemed to temper the chaotic visions swirling around him. For what felt like an eternity, Kale teetered on the edge of overwhelming despair and transcendent clarity. The relic, as if responding to his inner struggle, pulsed faster. In that intense moment of vulnerability, the crystalline light enveloped him, drawing forth the hidden strength buried within. A transformation took hold, an alchemical shift that fused the spectral legacy of his bloodline with the promise of redemption. When the light finally subsided, Kale stood before Lunara not as a man tormented by ancient curses, but as someone reborn with a renewed sense of purpose and resolve. The cavern fell into a profound silence, as if the very earth itself was absorbing the magnitude of the moment. Elias stepped forward, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "You have faced the darkness within and emerged transformed," he said softly. "But know this, the relic's power is a double-edged gift. It can guide you toward redemption, yet it will demand a sacrifice to balance the scales of fate." Before Kale could reply, a tremor shook the cavern. Dust cascaded from the ceiling as the ground rumbled ominously beneath their feet. Outside, the echoes of impending conflict, both in the wilderness and within the supernatural realms, began to stir once more. The ancient sanctuary, it seemed, was not yet ready to surrender its secrets without a fight. In the midst of this turmoil, a sudden, urgent knock echoed through the cavern's entrance. The sound, at once both insistent and foreboding, signaled the arrival of unexpected allies, or perhaps new adversaries. Kyle and Lunara exchanged glances, their expressions reflecting both the uncertainty of their fate and the fierce bond that had carried them this far. As they moved cautiously toward the source of the disturbance, the cavern's atmosphere shifted from one of introspection to a charged readiness for battle. Emerging from the darkness, a group of figures clad in weathered ceremonial garb approached. Their leader, a stern-faced warrior with eyes that shone like tempered steel, spoke with a voice that brooked no argument. "We are the Wardens of the Covenant," he announced. "Our duty is to protect the legacy of the ancients, and you, Kale, have disrupted a balance that was meant to endure." A fierce debate erupted in the cavern. Kale, still reeling from the transformative power of the relic, defended his right to choose a different destiny. "The relic has shown me that redemption is possible, that our past does not have to dictate our future," he proclaimed, his voice echoing with both conviction and newfound strength. Lunara stepped forward, her presence both commanding and compassionate, adding, "We seek not to destroy the legacy of the ancients, but to honor it by forging a path that embraces both light and shadow. Let us rise together, rather than be divided by fear." The Wardens, torn between their duty to uphold the old ways and the undeniable power of the relic's revelation, hesitated. Their leader's eyes narrowed as he weighed the sincerity in Kale's tone against the weight of tradition. "If you wish to change the course of fate," he finally intoned, "you must prove that your intentions are pure. The relic demands a sacrifice, a token of commitment to the new covenant you propose." In that charged moment, Kyle's thoughts turned to all that he had endured, the betrayals, the loss, and the relentless pull of a destiny he had long resisted. With a steady, resolute gaze, he addressed the gathered Wardens. "I offer up the remnants of a curse that has haunted my lineage for centuries. Let this sacrifice be the bridge that connects the old and the new, binding us to a future where redemption triumphs over regret." A hush fell over the cavern as the Wardens conferred in low, urgent tones. Finally, their leader nodded slowly. "Then the trial begins," he declared. "You must journey to the Temple of Echoes, hidden in the labyrinth of these ancient woods, and retrieve the Shard of Remembrance, a fragment of the relic that symbolizes both our past transgressions and our hope for renewal. Only by completing this trial can you prove that your vision is worth the risk." The challenge was formidable, a quest fraught with peril and uncertainty. Yet in that moment, Kale and Lunara found a renewed sense of purpose. Their bond, tested by the fires of transformation, shone like a beacon against the gathering darkness. With the Warden's trial set before them, they resolved to face whatever dangers lay ahead, united in their quest to rewrite a destiny marred by ancient curses. As the figures of the Wardens melted back into the shadows, the cavern's energy shifted once more, an electric current of anticipation and resolve that carried the promise of both redemption and sacrifice. Kale, his hand still resting on the now-dormant relic, turned to Lunara with a look of steely determination. "Our path is clear," he said softly. "We must venture to the Temple of Echoes. Our future, and the fate of our legacy, depends on it." Lunara's eyes met his, reflecting the fierce love and unwavering commitment that had carried them this far. "Together, we will face the trials of our past and carve out a new destiny," she vowed, her voice steady despite the tremors of uncertainty. "No matter the cost, we will rise from the ashes of old grievances and illuminate the darkness with our truth." With hearts intertwined and a single shared purpose guiding them, the duo stepped out of the cavern into the awakening light of a new day. The forest around them stirred as if in silent applause of their resolve, while the distant echoes of ancient chants promised that the coming trial would test the very limits of their strength and spirit. Their journey into the unknown had reached a critical juncture, a moment where sacrifice and hope danced on the edge of destiny, and where every heartbeat carried the promise of both loss and renewal. Every step forward now was a step toward an uncertain future, but also a bold defiance against the deterministic chains of the past. As they made their way along a narrow path that led deeper into the labyrinthine wilderness, the rising sun crowned the horizon with hues of gold and amber, symbolizing the first true glimmer of a future reborn from the remnants of broken promises. In the quiet before the storm of trials, their intertwined fates pulsed with the rhythm of the land, a timeless heartbeat echoing the eternal struggle between light and darkness. With each passing moment, the vision of the Temple of Echoes grew, clearer in their minds, promising both confrontation and catharsis, a place where the scars of yesterday could finally give way to the hope of tomorrow. The journey led Lunara and Kale deeper into the labyrinth of ancient woods, where nature's symphony grew ever more mystical and foreboding. The path wound through towering stands of centuries-old trees, whose twisted roots formed natural arches overhead, creating a passage into a realm where time itself seemed to hold its breath. Every step forward was a step into an otherworldly landscape, an interstice between the modern world and the primeval forces that had shaped human destiny. The cool, dense air was perfumed with the scent of damp earth and ancient foliage, as if the forest was alive with secrets waiting to be unearthed. Days melted into nights as the duo trekked onward, guided by the cryptic instructions from Elias and the pull of fate that seemed inexorably tied to the relic's power. Their conversations along the winding trail were punctuated by moments of profound silence, each one heavy with the anticipation of what lay ahead. Lunara's mind teemed with reflections on the choices that had led her here, while Kale wrestled with the legacy of pain and redemption that had defined his lineage for generations. As they neared the outskirts of the sacred woodland, the landscape began to shift. The wild, untamed forest gave way to an expanse of rugged hills and deep, echoing canyons that carved through the earth like scars. The terrain was as challenging as it was beautiful, a testament to the relentless force of nature over millennia. In the distance, shrouded by swirling mists, stood the Temple of Echoes, a structure that rose from the rocky outcrop like a relic from a forgotten epoch. Its silhouette was etched sharply against the bruised sky, a haunting reminder of both loss and promise. The approach to the temple was fraught with physical and emotional challenges. Every rock and crevice seemed to whisper warnings, while unseen eyes watched their progress from the shadows of ancient boulders. Despite the encroaching darkness, Lunara's determination burned brighter with each step. "We are nearly there, Kyle," she murmured, her voice steady, despite the tremor of exhaustion. "This temple holds the answers we seek, and perhaps the key to mending what has long been broken." Kale's eyes, reflecting both resolve and lingering uncertainty, met hers in silent acknowledgement. The relic's trial was not just a test of their strength, but of their very souls. The temple's entrance loomed before them, a grand archway carved from weathered stone, adorned with enigmatic symbols that glowed faintly in the twilight. The carvings depicted celestial motifs intertwined with images of mortal struggle and triumph. As they stepped beneath the arch, the air shifted, charged with a palpable energy that vibrated through their bones. The interior of the temple was a vast, dim chamber, filled with the murmur of ancient echoes. Dust motes danced in the beams of fading light that filtered through narrow, stained-glass windows, casting fragmented patterns upon the stone floor. Inside, the temple was divided into a series of corridors, each lined with statues of deities and guardians long consigned to myth. The walls bore inscriptions in a language both archaic and lyrical, speaking of trials that demanded not only courage, but a willingness to confront the darkest recesses of the heart. With every step, Lunara felt the weight of ancestral voices urging her to remember, to understand that every scar and every sacrifice was part of a larger tapestry of existence. Their first trial came unexpectedly. At the end of a narrow corridor, a chamber awaited them, a circular room whose center was occupied by a shimmering pool of water. The pool's surface was unnaturally still, as if it were a mirror to another realm. Ancient texts hinted that this was the chamber of reflection, where one was forced to confront the truth of one's own soul. Kale hesitated at the entrance, his gaze locked on the still water. "This is where we must face ourselves," he said softly, his voice echoing against the stone walls. "Our fears, our regrets, our hidden truths. They are all laid bare here." Lunara stepped forward, first, her reflection wavering on the surface of the water. In that silent moment, memories surged forth. Visions of past mistakes, lost loves, and the painful sacrifices that had brought her to this juncture. For a moment, the boundary between reality and memory blurred as she saw herself not only as the woman who had embraced the unknown, but also as the one who had once shunned it. "I see the fragments of who I was and the potential of who I might become," she whispered, her eyes brimming with both sorrow and hope. The pool did not judge. It simply revealed the raw, unfiltered truth of her inner world. Kale followed, his own reflection a turbulent mosaic of pain and determination. He recalled the faces of those lost to the relentless march of time, the ancestors who had borne the burden of ancient vows, the friends sacrificed at the altar of duty, and the moments of fleeting joy that had been overshadowed by regret. "I have carried the weight of a legacy too heavy for any one soul," he admitted, his voice thick with emotion. "In these reflections, I see the specters of my past, and yet I also glimpse the possibility of absolution." The murmurs of the temple seemed to offer solace and challenge in equal measure, as if the very stones were urging him to rise above the confines of destiny. Having faced their inner demons in the chamber of reflection, the passage to the next trial opened before them. They entered a vast antechamber, its walls adorned with murals depicting epic battles and sacred ceremonies, a visual testament to the struggles of countless generations. Here, the relic's trial demanded physical prowess as much as emotional fortitude. In the center of the chamber lay an ancient labyrinth, a maze of twisting passages and dead ends that symbolized the convoluted paths of fate. The challenge was clear. Navigate the labyrinth and retrieve the shard of remembrance, the key to balancing the relic's dual power of redemption and ruin. Together, Lunara and Kale ventured into the maze, their hands clasped tightly as both a source of strength and a promise to remain united. The labyrinth was a place of disorientation, where the walls seemed to shift and the very ground beneath. Their feet whispered secrets of hidden passageways. Their progress was marked by both moments of triumph and disheartening setbacks. At times, the maze appeared to conspire against them, looping back upon itself and threatening to trap them in a cycle of despair. But each twist and turn only deepened their bond, as they learned to trust not only in each other, but also in the silent guidance of fate. Throughout the journey in the labyrinth, memories of their shared trials served as both a beacon and a burden. Lunara recalled the tender moments of solace during stormy nights in the city, the whispers of ancient pacts spoken in half-light. Kale's transformation at the cavern, the fervor in his eyes as he embraced both his legacy and the promise of a different path. These memories kindled the courage they needed to press on. "Every challenge we face here is a mirror of the battles we have fought before," Lunara remarked, her voice steady despite the uncertainty that lay ahead. "We must use these lessons to guide us through the darkness." Time lost its meaning. as they navigated the shifting corridors of the labyrinth. The oppressive silence was intermittently broken by echoes of their footsteps, the soft rustle of fabric against stone, and the distant murmur of water seeping through the ancient walls. In one particularly tense moment, when the path seemed to dissolve into a void of uncertainty, Cale stopped abruptly. His eyes met Lunara's, and in that look, there was an unspoken vow, a promise that they would face whatever lay ahead together, even if it meant confronting the darkest depths of their souls. Their perseverance was finally rewarded when they emerged into a hidden sanctum at the heart of the labyrinth. Here, in a circular chamber bathed in an ethereal glow, lay the shard of remembrance, a crystalline fragment that pulsed with an inner light as if it were alive. The shard was set upon a pedestal of stone, its radiance undimmed by the passage of time. Around it, inscriptions in the same archaic script as those in the temple walls recounted the eternal struggle between despair and hope. In that moment, the weight of centuries seemed to converge in a single luminous point. Kyle approached the pedestal slowly, his heart pounding with the gravity of the moment. "This shard," he said, his voice a mixture of awe and determination, "is not merely a piece of our past. It is the essence of our ability to change our fate." As he reached out, Lunara joined him, their fingers brushing the cool surface of the crystalline shard. The contact sent a shiver through both of them, as if the shard recognized their combined strength and shared resolve. In that instant, visions of redemption and renewal flashed before their eyes, a future where the scars of old betrayals could be healed, and where the promise of a better destiny shone with resplendent clarity. Yet, as the shard's light grew brighter, a sudden tremor shook the sanctum. The very ground beneath their feet shuddered, and the ancient walls reverberated with an ominous rumble. The tranquility of the chamber was shattered by a cacophony of collapsing stone and anguished echoes. Outside, the tumult of dissent among Cale's pack and the gathering forces of tradition had reached a fever pitch, threatening to engulf the fragile peace that they had fought so hard to achieve. In the midst of this upheaval, a revelation struck them with the force of destiny. The inscriptions on the pedestal began to glow with a spectral light, rearranging themselves to form a message that transcended time. In a voice that seemed to echo both within and beyond the chamber, the temple spoke. "Only through the sacrifice of what you hold most dear can the curse be undone and the legacy redeemed." The words reverberated in the silence that followed, sending shockwaves of realization through Lunara and Cale. The message was clear. A sacrifice was demanded, one that would test the limits of their love and resolve. As they exchanged a glance, filled with both determination and sorrow, they knew that the trial was far from over. The weight of the revelation pressed upon them, its implications stretching into every corner of their intertwined fates. In that heart-wrenching moment, the true cost of redemption was laid bare before them. Cale, his eyes glistening with the pain of 1,000 unspoken memories, spoke in a voice that trembled with both regret and resolve. "I have carried the burden of a curse that has haunted my lineage for too long," he confessed, his words heavy with the sorrow of past sacrifices. "If the relic demands a sacrifice, then I must offer that which has defined me, my old self, the legacy of despair that has kept me imprisoned in regret. Only by letting go can I truly embrace the promise of redemption." Lunara's heart ached at the thought of losing the man she had come to love. Yet she understood that the path to salvation often required the courage to surrender parts of oneself. "Our love is the light that can guide us through the darkest of times," she whispered, her voice soft but resolute. "If you must sacrifice your past to forge a new destiny, then know that I will stand by you, even if it means facing a future shrouded in uncertainty." With a final, anguished breath, Cale pressed the shard into his hand. The crystalline fragment seemed to resonate with his very soul, drawing forth the pain and hope of his ancestors in one final luminous surge. The chamber filled with a brilliant radiance that engulfed them, blinding in its intensity and purifying in its promise. In that moment, time itself appeared to fracture, and the ancient curse that had bound Cale's lineage trembled on the verge of dissolution. As the light began to subside, the sanctum revealed a scene transformed. The oppressive energy of old wounds had been replaced by a serene, almost ethereal calm. The shard had merged with Kyle, its luminous essence weaving into the tapestry of his being. In its place stood a man reborn, not merely free of his cursed legacy, but elevated by the strength of his sacrifice and the purity of his love. Thy inscription on the pedestal glowed one final time before fading into the stone, its message fulfilled as the echoes of the past receded into silence. Outside, the tumult that had threatened to tear apart the balance of the supernatural and mortal worlds began to abate. The dissenting voices among the pack quieted, as if the ancient curse had been lifted by the transformative power of redemption. The forces of tradition and progress found a tentative harmony in the wake of the sacrifice, paving the way for a future where old grievances could finally give way to healing. In the aftermath of the trial, Lunara and Kale emerged from the Temple of Echoes as symbols of hope, a living testament to the power of love to redeem even the deepest scars of the past. Their journey had been one of peril and profound introspection, filled with moments of intense beauty and heartbreaking sacrifice. And as they stepped back into the familiar embrace of the modern world, the boundaries between the supernatural and the mundane blurred into insignificance. They carried with them not only the relic's shattered curse, but the promise of a new legacy, one that honored both the pain of yesterday and the hope of tomorrow. The path ahead was still uncertain, fraught with challenges that would test the strength of their bond and the resilience of their spirit. Yet, in that shared silence, amid the rustle of ancient leaves and the distant hum of a city awakening, there was an unspoken understanding. Redemption was not a destination, but a journey. A continuous act of letting go, forgiving, and daring to believe in the transformative power of love. In the quiet twilight of that fateful day, as shadows melted into soft hues of evening and the first stars began to shimmer in the sky, Lunara and Kale looked to the horizon with renewed resolve. Their hearts, once burdened by the weight of cursed legacies, now beat in unison with the promise of rebirth and the courage to shape their destiny. Together, they embraced the uncertain future, knowing that every sacrifice had paved the way for a love that would transcend the limits of time and space. In the quiet aftermath of the trials, as the light of day merged with the shrouds of night, the world seemed to hold its breath in anticipation of what was to come. The air was charged with a delicate balance of hope and uncertainty as Lunara and Kale returned from the labyrinth, the shard of remembrance safely secured, and the echoes of ancient vows still resonating within their souls. Yet, beneath the calm surface of their recent triumph lay the stirring of revelations that would forever alter the course of their intertwined destinies. As they emerged onto a secluded overlook above the city, a place where the neon hum of modernity met the timeless expanse of the horizon, Lunara felt an inexplicable pull, as though the winds carried whispers meant solely for her. The memory of the crystalline visions in the cavern and the haunting message from the Temple of Echoes resurfaced with renewed clarity. Only through the sacrifice of what you hold most dear can the curse be undone and the legacy redeemed. In that moment, Kale's transformed visage and the sacrifices he had borne began to reveal a hidden truth about their bond. A soft, almost imperceptible tremor ran through the ground, as if nature itself was signaling a convergence of past and future. Kyle, whose eyes now shone with the serene light of one who had embraced his destiny, turned to Lunara with an expression that blended both anguish and hope. "There is something I have yet to understand," he murmured, his voice a tender mix of vulnerability and determination. "All these trials, all the pain, they point toward a destiny that is not solely mine to bear." Lunara's gaze shifted from Kale to the distant skyline, where the first glimmers of twilight were giving way to the dark canvas of night. "What do you mean?" she asked softly, the question laced with the apprehension of a heart teetering between love and the fear of the unknown. In that silent pause, the wind seemed to carry an ancient cadence, a rhythmic murmur that beckoned her to remember. A sudden flash of memory, vivid and startling, flooded Lunara's mind. She saw a portrait of a woman, regal and mysterious, with eyes that shimmered like the moonlit surface of a hidden lake. In the portrait's delicate features, Lunara recognized her own. The vision was accompanied by a name whispered on the wind, Saraphina, a name that had been buried deep within the annals of her family's history, a secret that had been guarded by her ancestors for generations. "Kyle," Lunara's voice trembled as the realization washed over her. My lineage. It speaks of a seer, a guardian whose bloodline was destined to bridge the mortal and the supernatural. My grandmother used to tell me tales of Saraphina, the visionary who could heal ancient wounds. I never understood the depth of those stories until now. Her eyes glistened with both wonder and sorrow as she recounted the fragments of her past, the cryptic diaries, the faded photographs, the whispered legends that she had long dismissed as folklore. Cale stepped closer, his presence a steadfast anchor amid the swirling tide of revelations. "Do you believe that you are that guardian?" he asked, his voice laden with the weight of destiny and the promise of redemption. Could it be that the relic's power was always meant to be unlocked by the union of two souls, one cursed by the burden of an ancestral vow, and the other destined to break that cycle? The air around them seemed to shimmer with possibility as Lunara absorbed his words. In the quiet of that moment, the city below became a mere backdrop to the drama unfolding between ancient prophecy and modern destiny. "I believe it," she whispered, her tone both resolute and fragile. "All my life, I have felt a pull toward something greater, a calling I could never name. Now I understand that my path was intertwined with yours, not by mere chance but by design. Our love is not just a rebellion against a cursed legacy. It is the key to unlocking the redemption that has eluded your lineage for centuries." Before either could speak further, a sudden gust of wind swept across the overlook, carrying with it a spectral figure. Draped in a flowing robe that seemed to flicker like candlelight, an ethereal presence materialized before them. The figure's eyes shone with an ageless wisdom, and the soft cadence of her voice resonated in the cool evening air. "You have discovered the truth hidden in plain sight," the apparition intoned. "I am Saraphina, the seer of your bloodline, and I have awaited this moment with both trepidation and hope." Both Cale and Lunara recoiled in astonishment, their hearts pounding as the reality of the supernatural encounter sank in. Saraphina's presence, far more palpable than any myth, seemed to radiate a comforting warmth that defied the chill of the night. "For generations I have watched over your family, guiding you through shadows and despair," she continued, her voice imbued with the wisdom of countless lifetimes. "The relic's curse was never meant to be a prison but a test, a crucible that would forge a new destiny. Kyle, your sacrifice was not in vain, for it has broken the chains of old grief. And Lunara, your awakening is the catalyst for the dawn of a new era." The apparition's words reverberated within them, weaving together the disparate threads of their journey into a coherent tapestry. Cale's eyes filled with both relief and renewed determination. "Then our path is clear," he said, his tone now imbued with an unyielding resolve. "With Saraphina's guidance and Lunara's innate power, we can merge the fractured legacies of our past to forge a future where both the cursed and the redeemed may walk in unity." Saraphina's ethereal gaze swept over the couple as if reading the very depths of their souls. "The trials you have endured were not only a means to vanquish the old curse, but also a journey to awaken your true potential," she explained. "The relic was a mirror, reflecting the pain and promise that dwell within you. And now, its shards have been reunited in the form of your love and sacrifice. Together, you have the power to heal not just your own wounds, but the wounds of a lineage and a world divided by ancient enmities." In that transformative instant, the city below seemed to shimmer with an otherworldly glow. The boundaries between the supernatural and the mundane blurred, and the forces of tradition and progress found themselves drawn together in a delicate equilibrium. The dissent that had once threatened to shatter Cale's pack began to dissolve, replaced by a cautious optimism that acknowledged the possibility of change. The old ways were not vanquished. They were transmuted into a legacy of healing and hope. Lunara and Cale stood side by side as Saraphina continued her gentle admonition. "The final step requires not another trial of strength, but a celebration of the unity that has been achieved. You must present yourselves before both your clans, the supernatural and the mortal, as living proof that the ancient curse has been transformed into a covenant of renewal. Only then will the fractured lines of destiny converge into a single, unyielding bond of love, sacrifice, and redemption. With hearts pounding in unison, the couple descended from the overlook and returned to the heart of the city, where the boundaries of time and space converged in a bustling urban sanctuary that had long been a neutral ground for disparate souls. Word of their extraordinary journey had spread like wildfire among those who dwelled in the shadows of both worlds. As the duo approached the Grand Assembly Hall, a modern structure adorned with symbols that echoed both ancient runes and contemporary art, they were met with a gathering that spanned generations and realities. Elders of Kale's pack, once entrenched in the rigid traditions of old, now looked upon him with eyes that reflected both solemn respect and a dawning understanding. Among them, Rowan, whose defiance had once fueled bitter discord, now stood, humbled, his features softened by the realization that the old wounds could finally begin to mend. Representatives of the mortal realm, scholars, mystics, and even skeptics, had assembled to witness this unprecedented convergence. The hall itself vibrated with a palpable energy, a fusion of past grievances and future promises. In the center of the assembly, under a vaulted ceiling where stained glass depicted scenes of both sorrow and celebration, Lunara and Kale took their places. Before the expectant crowd, Kale recounted their journey, his words weaving together the tales of sacrifice, transformation, and the ultimate reconciliation between legacy and love. His voice, steady and resolute, carried the weight of centuries yet resonated with the lightness of hope reborn. Lunara, her eyes shining with the quiet intensity of one who had uncovered her destiny, spoke of her lineage and the calling that had guided her through the labyrinth of secrets. As their testimonies intertwined, a hushed silence fell over the assembly, a silence pregnant with the possibility of healing. In that moment, the ancient relic, once scattered and fragmented, seemed to glow in unison with the united heartbeat of all who were present. The spectral presence of Saraphina, though now fading from mortal sight, left behind a legacy of luminous energy that bound every soul in the room with the promise of renewal. Then, in a climax that defied all expectations, the relic's dispersed energies converged in a final brilliant surge of light. The glow cascaded over the assembly, enveloping every face in a shimmering radiance. In that transcendent moment, the curses of the past were lifted, and the ancient vows were transmuted into a covenant of collective healing. The old schisms that had divided clans and worlds for millennia dissolved into a newfound unity, a testament to the redemptive power of love, sacrifice, and the courage to embrace change. In the wake of that cathartic display, Rowan stepped forward, his voice breaking the spell of silence. "Today, we bear witness to a new dawn," he declared, his tone imbued with both humility and hope. "Our traditions need not be shackles that bind us to sorrow. Instead, they can be the very foundation upon which we build a future of understanding, where the lessons of the past serve as guideposts to a better tomorrow." His words, once laced with bitterness, now rang with the clarity of absolution. As the assembly erupted into heartfelt applause, Lunara and Kale shared a look that spoke of profound gratitude and unyielding resolve. Their journey, marked by betrayal, transformation, and an unexpected legacy, had culminated in the harmonious merging of two worlds. The ancient curse had been undone not by force, but by the revelation that true power lay in the capacity to forgive, to transform, and to love without reservation. With the echoes of the final vows lingering in the air, the couple stepped out into the night, a night that now seemed illuminated by the promise of a unified future. The neon lights of the city mingled with the starlight above, and for the first time in generations, the supernatural and the modern coexisted in a delicate, hopeful balance. The scars of old wounds were healing, replaced by the burgeoning promise of a legacy that honored both the trials endured and the sacrifices made. In that transcendent convergence, every soul present found solace, and every heart was imbued with the determination to carry forth the lessons of redemption. The ancient winds, carrying the timeless echoes of vows long past, now whispered of unity and rebirth. And as Lunara and Kale walked hand in hand through a world reborn, a world where every pain had paved the way for forgiveness, and every sacrifice had sown the seeds of new beginnings, the future unfurled before them, like an endless tapestry of light, hope, and endless possibility. Their journey had reached its zenith, a surprising twist that resolved all conflicts and transformed despair into a beacon of collective healing. In that glorious convergence of past, present, and future, the eternal cadence of destiny was rewritten, a resounding affirmation that even in the darkest moments, love would always emerge as the guiding force toward renewal.